ladies and gentlemen. We are still very much in the beginning, and still, I think I heard on the radio yesterday. Well, now we're past the time where you should say Happy New Year. I was like, really? It's still like the fourth
Really?
month? I don't know. But anyway, still Happy New Year to you. This is MSP Initiative, MSP Talk. This is our second episode of the year. So buckle up and let's get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll get into the good stuff. Wrong place. MSPinitiative.com. This is where everything that we do is here, right? So you should see the website here, MSPinitiative.com. Under sessions, this very session is being recorded. It will be posted on our podcatchers and YouTube and all the other places. You can see we have tons of, these sessions going back to March of 2020. We have two, not one, but two MSP Community Minds events this year. We did our first one last year in Denver, and it worked out to be pretty well. Different format, trying to change the educational kind of delivery, right? So MSP panels and then workshops, not 45-minute PowerPoint presentations, actual legitimate workshops, at least 2 hours apiece. So we have two of these coming up this year. One in Nashville, April 17th and 18th, one in Denver again, July 24th and 25th. Those are the dates. It does not cost one penny to register for these events as an MSP. There's no $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, $9.99. This is $0. For you to actually register and join us as an MSP. So still got to get there. Understand there's a cost there, but there's no event fee for whatever it's worth. So check this out under Community Minds on the MSP Initiative website. Then we get to our block parties. Last year we had 6, couple in Europe, the rest here in the US. Had our big blowout one at IT Nation at the end of the year, where we had Ezra Ray Hart, which was a combination of Better Than Ezra, Sugar Ray, and Tonic. The year before we had the All-American Rejects. So we're on a little bit of a roll. So this year we have many planned, some in Europe, obviously some here in the US, and I believe we may even sneak one down into Australia for our guys down under. So this is our payback to the community. They are a labor of love. They are a lot of work, but man, are they a good time. And we hope that we leave you with pretty memorable time. So stay tuned. We'll have plenty of these guys. Look, we have some already listed here, so you can see what our game plan is for 2024. We have some community offers. So these are just vendors in the space that are trying to hook you up with some deals. If they work for you, feel free. And then lastly is our industry calendar. I know a lot of people try and do this. We do it just, if anything, to keep ourselves organized. So there's somewhere like 250 to 300 events posted for the entire year of 2024. These are not our events, although the couple of our events are in there. But these are all of the industry events that we think are viable, that show up across the calendar year. So I'm sure there's going to be more added to this, because some people just didn't get to presenting their stuff until we got into the actual calendar year of 24. But use this to your own advantage, right? To figure out what's going on. As there's so many events, if you really wanted to, you could be on the road every day of the year, or every week of the year for that matter. I think that I don't recommend that you do that. I think you should pick the ones that make sense for you. And if you don't know, because there's just so many to choose from, a lot of people out there that can give you their opinion on what they thought from one versus the other. So there it is, MSPinitiative.com. That's all of the things that we do here. And without further ado, we bring our special guest on for today, Mr. Tim Golden. How you doing today, Tim?
Hey, George. Thanks so much. I'm doing pretty well, actually, for the 4th day of being sick and having strep throat. So yeah, it kind of crushed me over the holiday, but much better so far. And first, let me just start by saying thank you so much. The block party at IT Nation this year, as a first-time vendor, it was really great for us. A lot of connections, a lot of good, community conversation, a lot of hanging out, great music as an 80s lover myself, right? And so, for those vendors that will see this, I highly recommend that you look into working with George. It was really great for us as partnership and a sponsorship with you all. So just wanted to thank you for that, because
I
As a
appreciate
vendor, you
my
never,
love. I
yeah,
do.
well, as a vendor, you never really know, right? Like there are vendors that have a proven track record. And, as you know, we're just starting out here, a year plus in, like where our dollars are best spent. And I thought it was really great. And truth be told, like we're actually getting some good feedback from those that went to the event and then our partners. And so as a vendor, I strongly suggest you reach out to George and team over there.
Well, I really appreciate that, Tim. I mean, uh, last night there was we were talking about a podcast that Eric over at the MSP Channel ran about events, and we probably could have ran that for another 3 hours if we really wanted to. But I don't want to get too much on a soapbox, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said, and I'll say it as many times as it can be said until people absorb it. People will absolutely take your money, right?
Yeah.
If it's green and if your credit card swipes, if your bank account works, they will take your money. Whether you get anything back in return for it is anyone's guess. No guarantee. But it's like the house always wins, right? Casino edition. And it's very hard and we'll talk about this during the session, right? When you're on the aisle of the attendee, the IT service provider, the MSP, and you go to these events over time, you think, hey, I understand what's going on here. I understand the game. And then you cross the aisle to the other side. And then all
Yep.
of a sudden you realize, oh my Lord, this is like a desert landscape where people are just, bazookaing each other for
Yep.
life. And it's like, I didn't know it was like this. Well, surprise. So
Mm-hmm.
the math is definitely, tilted away from your favor, especially as an early kind of
Yep.
startup that you don't know what you don't know. So I
Exactly.
wish I knew early on in my journey, like you can easily drop six figures like this. And
Yep.
like, but you may not get anything in return for that. And that's hard to swallow because that's like going and buying something in cash. You roll in with the briefcase,
Yep.
you pop here you go, give me the $100,000 car. And you're like, what? I would never do that. Right. So, it's hard to swallow when you get to the other side of that transaction, you realize you're in trouble. But,
Yeah.
so
I mean, we could probably spend hours discussing this. I was listening in last night and obviously chatting today. Yeah, when I think of conferences, and this is one of the things that I like that you're kind of bringing forward too, is, there are a couple of others in the space. Like, don't pitch me. Even as a vendor, I'm like, don't pitch me. I'm going to be doing a couple of pre-days here, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I'm not bringing my sales team. I'm bringing me.
mm-hmm,
I'm talking about this is how to do this work. I don't care
mm-hmm,
if you do it in Excel or pen and paper. I'm going to teach you how to do the work.
mm-hmm.
Do it in whatever tool. In fact, I probably won't sell you my tool unless you have the people in the process, right? And so, there are some good conferences. There's some great stuff like what you're doing. Mind if I say our friends over at MSP Geek, what they're doing, right? I think there's a shift in the conference stuff, both from a vendor perspective in value, but also from an attendee and like, why am I here? Why am I spending, $7,000 to send my staff time, flights, out of office? Like, and I think there's a shift coming. And, it'll be interesting to see what the next several years play out in the conference realm. I think COVID really changed the idea. Now, I'm a I'm I'm a people person. I love to hang out and I'm around people. So there's that value to me at a minimum. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of years. But again, if you're an MSP, reach out to George, look at what they're doing over there. I mean, you can go to his conferences for free, you said, George, right? Like,
Yep,
okay, so you're into it
absolutely.
for maybe $1,000 for hotel and airfare. And then yeah, sure, having somebody out of the office. But yeah, I think a free event when you're looking at others that are $700 or $800 a pop. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, here's what I see. To kind of summarize what, the conversation. As somebody who is in your business or working on your business or running an IT services or technical company, like I don't expect you to spend a lot of time outside of your business. Maybe you have a couple of times a year where it makes sense for you to figure out what's next, what's coming, what's working.
Hmm.
And we always say, hey, like go to an event where you think you're going to add value. Sometimes the answer is I don't have a specific thing that I'm trying to solve for, until you show up and you realize what you didn't know, right? But that
Yep.
being said, right, like, you know, sometimes you need to alternate where you're going to, and sometimes you need a different perspective and a different audience and a different set of things that are going to be talked about at that particular place. But like set out to do to educate yourself, right? There's no continuing education credits in IT MSP land, right? You almost need to force yourself
Mhm.
to go down the lane. So I think there's a lot of good value to be had. But if you don't know, ask, right? There's a lot of smart
Right.
people out there that will share. From a vendor
Absolutely.
standpoint, we could probably have an entire dissertation on what makes sense and what doesn't. At the end of the day, I just think, and it was said very well last night by like Ken Patterson, for example, right? Like the community that we all exist in, whether we know it or not, is alive and well if you want to participate.
Yep.
And I would encourage you to participate, because if you're still operating under, castle mentality where like everybody's your competitor, don't talk to me, I'm going to have my moat with my alligators, and yeah, you stay on your side. I think that all you're doing is making it harder on yourself. And sometimes it makes sense to learn from other people rather than cutting your teeth the hard way every
Yep.
step.
Totally agree. And and I'll leave this last piece and move on from conference conversation. And that is, we are a community, and there are so many people wanting and willing to give, big, good or bad, give advice for free. I see it every week in my peer group. Every week. This one asks a question and three other people answer, and then they get on their own call and do their own thing after. And I'm like, great. So stick your nose in it. Don't be shy. Stop defending your castle in that regards. But in compliance, we want you to defend your castle.
So usually what I like to do, especially if we're talking to people, and a lot of people listen to this after the fact that don't know who you are. So a little walk down memory lane so people understand like your background, right? Before we go
Sure.
into the modern, kind of current conversation. Go for it.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been working in the IT field since probably before most of the people were born that were listening, that are listening. Well, maybe not you, George. Maybe we're pretty close. Been at an MSP doing federal government contract work up until January 1st. So I am 4 days. I was there like dwindling down, but I've been a contractor working in the federal government space, doing governance, risk, and compliance, and building web-based applications and a bunch of other things for the feds since 2006, 7, something like that. And as I got more involved in the community here in the MSP space, I realized just how much they fear compliance, B, they don't really know a lot about what it is, and in that vein of I want to share and give back, started doing some one-on-one conversations, which quickly evolved into giving 2 days a week for free. Yeah, not sustainable. So all that years of governance and compliance and understanding NIST and FedRAMP and all the buzzwords, getting more involved in the community and recognizing, hey, this is coming whether you know it or not. In fact, it's here, it's been here, it's in your face. And wanting to be able to give back to the community. And yeah, I mean, I guess I got to get paid along the way, right? Because I just left the MSP, so somebody's going to put food on my table. And so we built compliance risk, soon to be compliance scorecard, as a peer group, teaching MSPs all the intricacies around compliance. As we started to teach them that stuff and show them the software that I wrote, the GRC tool that I wrote for me. So one framework, one client, and only ran on my laptop. They were all, I want that. Can I have that? Oh, I like how that works. And so, some good friends in the space, I won't rattle off, name drop or whatever, but some good friends in the space were like, Tim, you need to turn that into a multi-tenant SaaS app and provide it to the people that are asking. And that's what we did. We launched soft launch a year ago, January 1st, and full launch at Right of Boom last February. And so here we are with, I hate to use absolutes, but I'm gonna anyways. We are the first and only governance as a service platform built by an MSP for an MSP. Now, I keep yelling at my marketing team to not use absolutes like first and only. So I still feel that way, but I think there's a lot of things coming to the space. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, and then I think recently, like, I don't know, maybe in the last 90 days, we heard that you had an investment by Bellini Capital. And for anybody who doesn't recognize that name, as in Arnie Bellini, former founder, owner of ConnectWise.
I did. We did. And yeah, we're pretty excited about that partnership, right? So, as a founder and as a startup, you always think like bootstrap. I want ownership. I want to retain control, all the things. And so, but we also recognize like it isn't the department of Tim, right? This company can't scale and grow by myself. I know well, I think I know a lot of my shortcomings. And so, where Arnie Bellini and the Bellini team really helps us, business strategy. He's been in the industry for what, 25 years
Long time.
on the vendor side. So it's a really great partnership. We work really well together. We're really excited about his investment because it gives us a little more breathing room, right? Or a lot more breathing room. It allowed me to leave my MSP and solely focus on providing great solutions to MSPs. So we're pretty ecstatic about that.
Yeah, I mean, not to go too far off the beaten path here, but I'm just around or just after IT Nation in November. I was reading, I think, an interview on Channel EDE with Arnie saying, "Hey, I'm coming
Yep.
back
Yep.
February. Now expect me to be back on the scene. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
making some noise. I'm going to be stirring the pot. It's time to fix it." And
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
"Fix
time
it?
to.
I thought you built it. What do you mean fix it?"
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I don't want to speak for Arnie, but I will kind of put my own spin to it, right? And so, maybe you've seen on some of my LinkedIn posts the iteration of the MSP, right? Step one, I graduate high school and I have a copy of Front Page, and now I'm a web. No, step one, I'm fixing my parents' computer. Now I'm
Mhm.
fixing my neighbors. Now I'm fixing everybody's. And oh my gosh, I should probably charge for this. Okay, I'm a break fix. I hate to use the term, but that's the way it works. Great. Well, you know what? If I can operational it, now I can charge monthly. Great. Now I'm a managed provider and I MSP. Well, you know what? This thing called compliance, this thing called security, like I should do something about that. Oh, let's add the extra S. So, but when they go from like that path and they don't have the right defensibility in place. They don't have good the right people, the right processes, the right things to actually build out a defensible program,
Mhm.
which is what I've been seeing, and maybe what Arnie's been seeing. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but it's like we've been doing it wrong. Like licensing, sell like automate. Like no, that is how the industry is today, where it needs to get back to, which is where it was in the 80s and 90s, and that is consultative selling, right? You have your lawyer. You don't go to your lawyer to manage your, like, you go to your lawyer for the advice and what they're going to give you. You go to your doctor. You go to these professionals that are the key person that the expert, right? And so when it comes to IT services, us professionals like you, George, like others in the space, like that's the fix that needs to happen. We need to be able to be more consultative in nature. We need to be able to break it down in terms that the business can understand. And I break it into three categories: risk, revenue, and reputation.
Mhm.
And if you can't have that conversation with your client, you either need to hire somebody that can, or just get out of the business because you're doing it wrong.
Interesting. Well, I mean, one thing's for sure, there is plenty of people like me, like you, Tim, who, and quite frankly, I think some of the more successful companies that have popped up in our sandbox have come from people who are in the trench, on the ground, in the business, and they're like, I need a solution here, and I'm going to go out. And I didn't find something that fits, and then
Yep.
you're like, there's a need. I guess I'm going to build it because I can't find it. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden, a solution pops out, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then you see, how the industry kind of pops up. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of the cool ideas that turned into companies didn't come from the big guys, right? I mean,
No.
sometimes they get acquired by the big guys, but they surely didn't start there.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, right? Like I said earlier, I've been building FedRAMP moderate web applications for 20 years. I know how to build a website. I know how to follow NIST 853. I know how to get third party audited and attested to. I used all the GRC tools. I could rattle off all the ones that I was paying money for, and none of them did governing. None of them did a piece that I needed to be able to be successful in a GRC program. I could have went to all of them and said, "Can you build this? Can you add this?" And I took what I had for my resources, my dev shop of 30 people, and said, "Here's a functional spec. Go build it."
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward, here we are a year later with filling the gaps that the current tools didn't do.
Yeah. So let's rewind for a second and talk specifically about what you're solving for. A lot of MSPs aren't dealing with a federal government agency,
Nope.
or if anything, they're probably downstream from somebody who is working with the government, but maybe they're a vendor of a
Yeah.
vendor of a vendor, right? And that's where things get a little bit murky. Like HIPAA, I think, was the first realization to, hey, you're not a doctor, but you may be bound to the same rules that the doctor should be applying to because you have access to data, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to kind of fast forward, like there's all these compliances out there depending on your industry. And it seems like, I don't know, was it December 29th? Finally, like
CMMC.
CMC,
Yeah.
if for anybody that doesn't realize what that is, that's basically compliance that the Department of Defense put out and like talked about it and suggested what should be done. And like, we're like inching closer towards, hey, like we might start to actually enforce this. And now, and like, it's not 100% there yet, but they finally, after apparently years, came out on December 29th, 3 days before the new year, and said, hey, this is our, for like, this is our like formal step forward to making this something that we're going to enforce. Like, it's not done yet, but it's
Mm-hmm.
further along than it's ever been. Did I say that right? I think that's what it was.
Yeah, so CMMC, it's oh my gosh, I could spend 3 hours on this conversation. So I'll sum it up in a few couple of words. It's here. If you deal with the defense, you probably need to deal with it. As far as how, hire an expert, period. If your MSP hasn't already started doing this work or have an expert on, retainer or whatever, don't. I'll just flat out say don't. And I say that because while FedRAMP is a little bit higher than CMMC, yes, there's a cost. You need to have the people, you need to have the process, you need to have the right tools. And it can be done. Don't get me wrong. There are some really great MSPs that are getting into that space and are going to crush it. But if you haven't already started, you're too late. Partner with somebody who like I don't want to rattle off names. Partner with somebody that are experts, and before you do your damn due diligence. Don't Google them because I'll guarantee you the top 20 that come up you don't want to work with. I know that because they offer CMMC in a box, and I can go on a whole nother tangent. But so
Well,
CMMC.
that's just like turning into an MSSP in an hour, right? Like I see those ads too.
I saw that LinkedIn post. Oh my gosh.
I was like, I don't think that that's good. Anything that's really bad. That's not real.
So I'll leave one note with CMMC. If you haven't already started and you don't have the expertise, partner. Don't know who to partner? Happy to jump on a call. You can grab my info off our website. I can help you choose. I am no longer doing that work in assessments and all that stuff. I am done. 20 years of that, I'm done. But I'm, as you know, back to the very first part of the conversation, I'm willing to offer some free advice here and there.
Yeah. So I
As
just want
far as
I applaud you
good,
right there. So again, um, I think that where people don't even realize this exists is, hey, I don't sell to the government, so like I don't even
yeah,
care about this. I think where people get or will get surprised is you're working for a manufacturer or a professional services company, an architect, or whatever. All of a sudden, they call you up one day, or they send you a message saying, "Hey, I need you to fill out this paperwork," and you're like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Well, in order for
yep.
me to keep buying from you, I need you to do this, and this is not easy."
Yeah, and that actually, take that even further. It's not even CMMC at this point, right? So your clients, your MSP clients, are getting more and more of these security questionnaires, more and more of the, hey, I want to do business with you, do this vendor due diligence thing that then flows down to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I mean, vendor due diligence isn't just you and your client, it's you and your client and their clients and their clients' clients. I mean, it's this big spider web and gets so compliance is here, vendor due diligence, all this fun stuff. It's here. It's not going away. What we try to do is help you simplify that, help you break it down, take these, and was literally just talking to somebody this morning. Like, one of my strengths, one of our biggest strengths is to take these big, complex, potentially scary things and break them down into bite-sized, actionable chunks that you can actually implement. And
Mm-hmm.
then, by the way, monetize and scale. Do
Mm-hmm.
it for yourself, walk through the process on your own with our help, get your own house in order, and now monetize it and scale. You talked about the investment in the very beginning. I
Mm-hmm.
bootstrapped all of this until I had Arnie. Do you know how I did that? By doing compliance as a service for dozens and dozens and dozens of companies. And I could do that because I had the people, me, I had the process. I could charge lower rates than others because I was efficient, and I
Mm-hmm.
could make money to be able to support building what we're doing.
Okay, so this isn't just about compliance that is specific to the government. There's so many compliance frameworks.
Yep.
And again, if it's medical, maybe it's HIPAA. If it's financial services, maybe it's Sarbanes-Oxley. If it's
Yep.
the ISO, certifications, and like, here's the problem. A lot of them, and again, I'm no security expert. I'm no Matt Lee. I'm no Tim Golden, but a lot of them, when you look at all of the things that they ask you to do, there's a pretty good cross section, right? Of things that, like, hey, if you're already doing it here, you're already good here too. And so instead of, having to reinvent that work over and over again, you could save yourself some time and some energy. Here's the other challenge, like the example of your customer came to you and said, hey, I need you to fill out this paperwork. It's, that may not just be, hey, in order for me to keep doing business with you, I need you to do this. It could be, hey, in order for your customer to keep doing business with their customer, they need to do it. And now all of a sudden, they are stuck looking for help on how to check that box.
Exactly. And that's where, and you know what? That's an intricate part, right? Like, so your customer's customer needs all of this. That is one bucket of where this can come into play. But I'll even back up 10,000 feet. Cyber insurance,
Oh, I mean,
right?
it's crazy and
So
crazy.
I'll break down the simplest key components of cyber insurance that you hear everybody barking about. There are 5 or 6 categories: 2FA, training, blah, 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 blah. There's 5 or 6 key categories of things that they look for. Do you have an incident response plan? I do. I work with Fifth Wall to build one to give away as a free template on our website. Now you can go have an incident response plan with our friends at Fifth Wall Cyber. Okay. Do you have a cyber plan? Do you have security awareness training? Yeah. Well, I'm going to be working with a couple of well-known security training companies to put out a free download cybersecurity training policy. Cyber insurance, as they build their data in their actuary tables in their stuff, they're going to want more and more proof of how you're defending your castle, right? Back to the castle conversation. How do you do that? Policies and procedures is the very first thing that every business should have, period. We don't think of it in cyber, but on the other areas of the business, I have an employee handbook. I have an onboarding and offboarding, right? I have a new hire work form. I have a, offboarding work form. Like in the other areas of business, we're used to doing that work. It's normal as part of almost every business, right? Got 3 or 4 employees, I guarantee you're going to have an employee handbook. You're going to have how you do payroll. You're going to have that. Well, taking all of that same stuff and applying it to cyber does not have to be hard. We're going to help you make that easy. Cyber insurance is going to help you lower your cyber insurance rates, hopefully, right? And so, compliance aside, FedRAMP, CMM, like throw all that out the window. How about get your house cyber ready? We're
Cyber,
gonna,
that's
yeah,
I, for all these people that say that you're compliant. A lot of the, like, sometimes the only way to say you're really the correct way is to say that you're compliant ready, right? Because like a lot of these, and again, you've done this for a long time. I'm talking from the outside here, but like really the only way to determine if you're compliant is either you're saying what they call it, self attestation. Hey, I'm telling you
yeah,
I'm good. I'm signing off. But of course, if something bad happens, they come back and say,
right,
hey, what happened here? Or a third party's coming in and actually validating that you said that you did what you did. Here's the problem. The insurance company is going part A, right? Self attestation. They have you fill out this stuff. And
yeah,
only when the problem occurs, they come back and say, well, wait a minute. You say you do this, and this. Now I'm coming and asking why. Like, show me
exactly.
that you're actually doing that. And usually by the time you're asking those questions, they're trying to figure out how to say that you're not doing it so they don't have to pay your claim.
Exactly. And that's it, right? So we talked about castles before, right? And so, you know, when the thing happens, and let's hope it doesn't, you're going to need to be standing in front of the jury of your peers, quote, quote, that might be cyber insurance, or it might actually be a jury of your peers. And
Mm-hmm.
the first thing they're going to ask is, did you do what you said you were going to do, or was that written down, or did people even know about it? Right? Did you have things in place to say we're not? It's the same thing. Like, I mean, I hate to keep coming back to the HR issue. Somebody tries to sue you for, bad employment practices or sexual or any of that kind of stuff. Well, you're going to point to your handbook and say, my lawyer wrote the handbook, I'm good. And they're going to be able to look at that and go, yeah, well, you're right. It's in the handbook and the employee agreed to it. So, okay, or not. It's the same concept, except in cybersecurity and building that defensibility.
Yeah. It's
It's not a
interesting.
hard segue. What gets hard is when you throw the word compliant or compliance in the mix, people get scared. It has this, bad connotation to it.
Well, I think part of the problem, Tim, like, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you. Maybe just ask you the
Yeah,
question outright. Have
sure.
you been in a situation in your, journey where somebody who said that they were doing things got audited to confirm that they were doing things, then had to deal with an incident that required them to defend them?
All the
Because
time.
okay, so I think that's the scary part, right? It's,
I,
hey,
I'll take that even a step further. And as an auditor, walking into an organization saying, "Hey, do you have a password policy? Let me get back to you tomorrow." Okay. They give me the document the next day, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, "Yeah, it kind of aligns." But then and there's a table in there that says updated in 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23. And I'm like, okay. But I look at the metadata and it was created yesterday from SANS Institute. Okay, you just lied on this whole document that you've been managing for years. Like, bail. Now I'm putting, as an auditor, I'm putting your integrity, your business integrity into question. I'm going to blow your whole audit because you just lied to me like flat out on your documents. Like, and I see that time and time and time again as an auditor. I'm going to go grab a template because I needed it because you just asked for it and I didn't have it, so I found one. Well, first and foremost, as auditors and as legal teams and lawyers and judges, we know all these templates. We're very familiar with them because they're all over the internet, and we keep seeing them time and time and time again because they're all generic and they all, yeah. So conversely, templates can be really helpful. I don't want to, totally nix the whole template because we have a document library. The point that I'm trying to make is that don't lie because you will get caught.
Well, I mean,
especially in the digital age where everything has a fingerprint.
but Tim, I went to my peer group. I went to the guy that I met at the conference and I said, hey, do you mind sharing? And then they just changed the logo at the top and hit save. I mean, how many
Yeah,
times?
well,
How many times?
yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens, right? And you see this with MSAs, right? Brad Gross talks about this all the time. Eric Tildes, Brad Gross, all our MSP lawyer friends talk about this all the time. The problem is it is not tailored to that business practice.
Mm-hmm.
It is not specific to you and what you're doing. MSAs are the same way. Like, hey, I got it from the guy I met in New Hampshire, and I'm in Timbuktu. Well, the laws are different in each state. Okay,
Yep.
so copy paste company name and logo ain't gonna work. The same is true in cybersecurity policies. We need to be able to take the time. And this is what our platform does: is we call it the alignment phase. Take the document and actually align it to the business practices in place. And number one, it's never done. You're always iterating
Okay.
because things change.
Let me flip it the other way.
Sure.
They go to sign up. They say, I have nothing. Give me the policies. So, of
Sure.
course, their partner, whatever, says, all right, here are the policies. But then, like, having them in paper is one thing. Following what they gave you, completely different, right? Like, somebody knocks on your door and says, give me a policy. Here you go. But then, like, in reality, like, that's sitting on the shelf collecting dust. We don't actually do that.
Yeah, and that's another big problem is, shelfware, right? Things, I mean, let's face it, SharePoint is where documents go to die, right? And thanks, Sean Lardo, for that. I use that every single day. There's a couple of other key pieces. So yes, the alignment piece, writing it to the business practices in place. The authorization piece, like this needs to come from the top down. If you don't have executive buy-in, if there's not consequences, we actually like rewards better as we look at rewarding people for doing the work they're supposed to be doing as opposed to punitive. But executive buy-in, that authorization, the CEO says, this is our employee handbook, or this is our password policy, and I'm going to follow it. The next big piece of that is end user adoption and training. There's a lot of platforms that essentially like upload your Word document and we'll send it out. Okay, well, you missed all the stuff before that, which is the platform that we built. The adoption and training piece. I mean, we talked insurance. Everybody's been barking about cyber security training, ongoing training. Like it is a thing. Like it's not going away because the humans are the weakest link. Now, how can I help prove that in our platform? Yeah, we got some secret sauce for that. But the biggest component is let your users know the why, teach them on the how, and help them ensure that they adopt it as part of their daily life. And then put the guardrails in place to make sure that they're doing it.
Yeah, sounds great, but once again, how many times did we find out that the issue happened because, well, MGM was not too long ago. I think it was like 3 months ago now. Like somebody called in, said they were somebody they weren't. Bada bing,
Process
bada
breakdown.
boom, password reset, and off you go, and they're in, right? Like, I don't know if I call that a hack, Tim. That's just a straight up human being problem.
Yeah, that's a process breakdown, right? If they had maybe multiple different, I'll that's a really good example, but I'll pick on wire fraud, for example, right? So wire fraud happens, we know it happens. And why does it happen? Because you have one person in accounting that deals with both sides of the banking. And she gets an email that looks like it's from the CEO to buy gift cards or pay a bill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she never actually asked the CEO, hey, is this legit? Okay, that's a process breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
We in our business here, like my co-founder, my wife manages all the business side and the billing and all that stuff. But before she pays a bill, I get a text message from the platform that says, do you approve this?
Mm.
So we have a process. Like anything over a certain dollar threshold, we have two people check on it. The person like in this case with MGM, maybe there was a process. I don't know the gory details. Maybe the human didn't follow the process. Maybe they did. I don't know. But if there are checks and balances in place, then it's less likely to happen. I'm not saying it will never happen because we all make mistakes. We're all fallible. I mean, crap happens, right? People do dumb. I mean, I do dumb stuff all the time. There's and like, oh, look, pay my bill for $500. Oh, yeah, sure. Yes. And if I didn't actually like text her back or call her or verify, I could have just had yes and shipped out $50,000 to George to pay for a conference.
Oof. Well, number one, if
Kidding.
I
I'm
hope I'm
kidding.
never taking $50,000 from you. But that being said,
No.
I've seen this happen. And by the way, a lot of the cyber insurance policies, even the really basic ones, cover this wire fraud thing, right?
Yep.
Right. Within reason, right? Like, like if it happens to you all the time, then we got a big problem, right? Like this
Yeah.
is supposed to be a blue moon thing, but I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen several times to people who are like smart people, like not I wouldn't say power users, but computer savvy, and like
Yeah.
they got bamboozled on the wrong day. I mean, like,
Right. It happens, and I get it. And can a policy and a procedure that's been authorized, trained on, and adopted 100% prevent that? Absolutely not. But it's far better than one person that has the keys to the kingdom that gets some random email that has never been trained.
mm-hmm.
Right? What you're doing with having solid documentation, specifically around cybersecurity, is you're building that defensibility and you're showing due care, right? Nice legal term for you there. You're showing the jury of the cyber insurance or the actual jury or mitigators. You're showing, listen, I do care. I did this. I've been following this. This is how I operate. I've been trained on it. And you know what? I went to hit no and I actually hit yes by mistake. I screwed up, but I haven't done it all along because all along I've been following the policy and the process.
Yeah. Well, my guess is, a lot of people show up to a lot of, with nothing. They're handed
Yep.
policies, but then like they don't do like from an implementation of the policy, nobody's actually trained on what on what that policy says. And that's usually where, things will break down, right?
And that's where our platform completely differs. So, from the MSP perspective, when you're building out the policies, our documents are vastly different than what you're going to get on the internet. Why? Because every single section of the document, I actually write out explanation text that says what goes in this box, what goes in that box, how to write an executive summary for a password policy, how to write a purpose statement for an acceptable use policy. Like I take the time in our document library to teach you. So that's the first part. Once you go through that and the document's been authorized and we push it to the end user with a little bit of, and I hate to use AI because, it's the buzzword these days, but whatever, with a little bit of machine learning, a little bit of artificial intelligence, I can actually read that document, in our own private repo, blah, 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 put it back to the end user in eighth grade language, eighth grade English, by the way, in terms they can understand, and then quiz them on it.
Hmm.
So here's the document. We took all that mumbo jumbo tech jargon stuff. We put it in a manner that still means the same, but is at eighth grade reading level.
Mm-hmm.
And then we test you. all done automated through the platform, blah, 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 blah. Like, so it's not just a checkbox exercise with the end user. They actually have to read it, understand it, and get tested on it.
Yeah. So Lisa, who's in the chat, was just like, "Hey, what's the company name? I just wanted to know."
Oh, compliance risk.
Yeah, compliance risk.
Compliancerisk.io. Sorry.
No worries. There you go, Lisa. That's cool. Yeah. So I love that because like instead of just handing you all the jargon and you know how many times somebody reads something, Tim, and you're like, do I need an expert to make this make sense for me? So I do like that you're having them put that into their own language. So so is this a broad solution for multiple compliances, or are you only working with specific ones? Like, how far is this going?
I mean, let's face it, this is my baby. I've been living it for 17 years. You mentioned earlier that there are some cross pieces. I will flat out say cross mapping is not a thing. Don't
No.
buy a platform because they say they can cross map. Go look at my LinkedIn article about what NIST posted. I'm going to use my non-military words. I'm going to use my polite words. Cross mapping is a load of poop.
Oh, all righty then. Well,
However,
I've had a couple people
however,
say, oh yeah, there could be a 20% crossover. I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, we'll define crossover, right? Here's the challenge. The
Yeah,
way framework X describes a control and the way framework B describes a similar control is not a one-to-one correlation.
fair.
It might be. They can be close, but it is not apples to apples. You might be comparing a Granny Smith to a Golden Delicious, and while they're both apples, they're different flavors and different colors. So
Okay.
cross mapping, be very careful. Now, our platform is framework agnostic. Yes,
Oh,
we have documentation, we have assessments, we have all the scorecards for the top 20 frameworks. CIS, 123, NIST, HIPAA privacy, HIPAA security, DSF, New York DSF, basically the ones that you're seeing, with the exception of ISO. ISO is a proprietary paid framework, and I don't want to cross lines there. So once I get into their ecosystem and then have those legal agreements to be able to do that, then I might add ISO, but we have ISO experts on staff that can help you.
okay.
So, framework agnostic.
I like that. So the idea is, hey, listen, you're gonna have to go down this road one way or another, or you're gonna have to decide to let go of business, right? Like, and I would say that if you let go of business, that may be a short-term play because at some point they're gonna get you from one angle, right? So,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
it's really cyber insurance is that's going to get pretty much everybody, period.
I wonder. I
Like
feel
it's the driving force.
at what point is cyber insurance not even attainable, right? Do they just stop offering it? I mean, it sounds like that's an option.
Right. And then, fines and all that, like it's, you said HIPAA a couple of times. And
Mm.
as somebody that worked with healthcare organizations and hearing from Joe's Dental or, Dr. Louie, like, I ain't doing that. Insurance will cover it. Not anymore.
Oh no. Here's the most common one. I'm too small. They're not looking for people like me. Don't
Well,
worry about
yeah, I mean, that's yeah, the too small conversation. And I feel like that's a dead horse. But you're right. Like all of these industries that tend to used to rely on insurance ain't going to happen anymore. If you're insurable, number one. And number two, great. You either pay now with a wicked high premium or you pay later and end up still paying twice because you didn't do the things that you said you were going to do.
it. Yeah, that's definitely a double whammy. I wonder how much the insurance policy covers fines. Probably not much.
Yeah, I'm not an insurance broker. I tend to move that over to, Will and them at Fifth Wall Cyber because I'm not legally allowed to talk about that because I don't know, like I'm not, but it is interesting. In fact, we're renewing our liability insurance, and it's like just the application from last year to this year with the same company, by the way, has changed significantly.
I gotta think that, like cars have been on the road for a long time, so they got a lot of data. The
They
cyber
do.
thing probably don't have as much data. So, and whoever they hire to consult with them to generate this documentation that has to be filled out, I'm sure that's affecting things. But one thing's for sure, and I mentioned this, last month. I was on with our friend from Iron Scales. At what
Oh yeah.
point? At what point? Like when you apply for any insurance, it's a very specific snapshot in time, right? Like it's, hey,
Yep.
what do you have now while you're applying, right?
Yep.
Um, but these new startups that have popped up, right? Like Cork is an example, not
Yeah.
insurance,
Yeah.
but whatever you want to call it. Like they're continuously scanning, right? Like you sign into all your various security tools, and they're pulling this data in on a regular. I
Yep.
think we said kind of reminds us of the commercials where you put the dongle into your car
In
and
that
then
car.
tell you
Yep.
whether you can save money.
Yep.
That's a different story now.
Yeah, and I mean, the integrations that we're doing are just like that, right? Prove it. And I keep digressing back to my platform, and I don't want to do that. But MSPs have access to all their clients' data, all their platforms, all their tools. You have it. The problem is it, A, it's not structured. B, it's all over the place. And so what we're building, go back to Bellini Capital again, right? Go back to what we're doing from the very beginning. Maybe I'm letting secret sauce out, but maybe I don't care. You know, think about having a data lake of structured data from all the disparate sources across the MSP ecosystem that then can be microserviced out. Your little dongle. Plug in the dongle to insurance company A. Here's the data in a structured format. Great. I want X, Y, and F. We have it. It's in the data lake. Here's the microservice. Have oh, you need a SIM and we need data from the like. Great. Here's the microservice. Go grab it. And so that's part of my vision of what I'm building here at Compliance Scorecard is let's put this data together in a structured manner that can then be consumed to not only meet compliance when and where appropriate, but also cyber insurance when and where appropriate, and bring it all the way back to the MSP. And this is what I've said 1,000 times, and I'll keep saying it again. You own all the risk. Today, we want to help you transfer that risk or share that risk when and where appropriate.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that we talk about how easy it is for somebody to just show up on the scene, say they're a new IT company, all right, and go out there and do it. But
Yeah.
I think the last 5 years, the pendulum has swung in a direction where, hey, you could put yourself in a very bad position legally, financially,
Yep.
if are not doing things in the appropriate way, for this industry. And like other than learning from people who have been hit, in the past, um, it's not yet in a place where this is very upfront information. Let's be honest. I think
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
yeah,
Um, so to bring me full circle here, right? Because I know we're coming up on the top of the hour.
yep,
And I know I
absolutely.
talked a lot about different things, and I hate to keep pitching. Um, in my opinion, MSPs own all the risk. And if you don't have a manner to share and transfer that risk, starting with your MSA, thank you, Brad and Eric,
Mm-hmm.
starting with your MSA, all the way down to enforcing two factor. I can't believe it's 2024. We're still complaining about two factor. Oh, right.
Still a thing, still
Still,
optional.
hey, we're going to go CMMC, but I refuse to do 2FA.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm with you. I am.
if
Uh
you're if you're an MSP and you want to protect your own company, I almost said it. You want to protect your own butt. start with your MSA, hire the appropriate lawyer, stop stealing your buddy's template, tailor that thing to your business, and hire the right people to do it. It is possible. We maintained FedRAMP moderate for years with no tools. Years. Getting attested by the federal government every 3 years because the tools didn't exist. So it is possible. I know it because I did it. Why? Because it started with solid, appropriate policies and procedures. But our platform is way beyond just policies and procedures. We're new features literally every day. I woke up Monday morning after the holiday weekend, logged in and looked, and the devs rolled out Risk Register. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? We haven't talked about that on the roadmap. And poof, there it was. That's like, love my dev team.
It's awesome. Tim, so I think we had it earlier, but compliancerisk.io is the right place to go check this out. And
or compliancescorecard.com, which is where we're moving to by February.
Awesome. I like Compliance Scorecard. That's definitely easy to follow. And then I don't know many people named Tim Golden, but I'm sure you're on all the platforms. So if you want to find Tim online, I'm sure it will not be hard. Just put it in to LinkedIn or whatever it is.
I have a cousin that has the exact same name that is a senator.
Oh,
or was a senator.
that must have been interesting. I assume that we'll see you again at Write a Boom in Vegas.
We will. Okay. We will be there. Big Bellini announcement, right? So, yeah, we love Write a Boom. Andrew's got a really great thing. It's an amazing show. We'll be at a bunch of them coming up this year. Selective ones, appropriate ones, but we're out there. You can find us.
Awesome. Well, if you haven't heard of Write a Boom, just Google it. Write a Boom Las Vegas. That's where they moved it to this year. It's still I think this is our 4th year. Still relatively newish event, but very security focused. And I think that lot to be learned the way that they would do what they do. So Tim, I really appreciate it. I will see you out in Vegas. Hopefully, I've avoided Vegas events for years, but Write a Boom, exception.
I went back to Vegas for ChannelCon CompTIA last year for the first time in over 20 years, and I still hate it.
Yeah.
20 years later.
It is what it is. Guys, we recorded this session. A lot of good things to go back and think about from this one. So go to mspinitiative.com under sessions later on today. I know obviously we'll post it in all the various places. Check out again Tim Golden, the non-senator Tim Golden, and compliancescorecard.com or compliancerisk.io. And we appreciate you listening in on this. We do these twice a week. There's a lot of these scheduled going into 2024. I'm excited for this year. I know it's the 4th day of the calendar year. So good luck this year, guys. And don't go at it alone. There's a lot of help out there.
Awesome. Great job. Thanks.
Appreciate you, Tim. Talk soon, my friend.